Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, USA Today's NFL Wire site, covering, of course, your Arizona Cardinals. Episode 679 as we continue with our 2026 NFL Draft preview, each position. Joining me for this show, as he has for most of the time, most of the 769 episodes, is Seth Cox from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site. Today, in this episode, we're talking interior offensive linemen. So far in our draft previews, we've talked about quarterbacks, we've talked about running backs, we've talked wide receivers, tight ends, and even offensive tackles. A position that we have not heard a lot of this offseason is the interior offensive line, in part because they signed Isaac Seumalo. And at right guard, we have a bunch of guys. Maybe that's still Isaiah Adams. But in terms of what has been heard about guard and center, there's been very little. There's been little discussion at all as to where the Cardinals might get a guard or a center. And in our position preview shows, when we were talking about the position priority, either one of those positions would make sense about round 3 or later. But we want to talk about guards and centers to know at all different parts of the draft. Now, there doesn't seem to be a round 1 center prospect this year, is there, Seth? But there seem to be one first round guard with a bullet, isn't there?
Yeah, and if you want to go ahead and pronounce that name.
Vega Ione. I should have checked that.
Yeah, so it's Olia Vega Ione.
Just say Vega. Just say Vega.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, he is a guy in any draft class, not just because this is a down-ish year.
Ioane or Owane or Ioane. I'm not sure which one it is.
Yeah, but he'd be a top 35 pick in any draft class. I mean, he is a guy that has played a ton of snaps at the left guard position, has played over on the right guard as well during his time at Penn State. 3 sacks in his career while at Penn State allowed, and probably the best pass blocking guard we've seen in a while. He's excellent in pass pro. The irony being his weakness is a little bit in the run game. And by weakness is he's slightly better in pass pro than as a run blocker right now. But, those type of things make sense. He's going to go in that 12 to 18 range, I'm going to imagine. Who picks him, where, that type of thing. It'll really just depend on where who's there. But you look at really from Dallas down to Minnesota, all of those teams can use interior offensive line help. And Ione is probably the best option at that position. I know we've talked about Fano moving inside. I know we've talked, but like from a pure guard perspective, a guy that's done it at only guard. I mean, again, he's kicked around, I think like 15 snaps at tackles in his career. You're talking about an elite pass protector, only going to be 22. So he, the on-field production and then the age really put him as number 1 with a bullet when you compare him to the next couple guys in the class.
That's there. Now, what if the Cardinals, for some reason, he dips all the way down to 34? Do you think Cardinals fans would be disappointed if they ended up with no tackle in round 1 or round 2, if they went pass rusher at 3 and Ioane at 34. Would that be a travesty, or would that still be a steal?
I think that would be a steal. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's going to be ideally kind of plug and play right away. His zone grade is very good. As a run blocker, his gap grade is just equally as good. It's just he's not quite as good in in the run game. Now that might have coincided with the kind of the downward trend of the Penn State rushing offense, but he's so good in interior pass sets that you're like, I mean, at the size, the strength, we can work through that and get him, coached up. But you can't coach his ability in pass pro.
Okay. Any other guy that on the offensive interior that could sneak into round 1? Or is he the only interior lineman that you go, yeah, round 1 guy?
I mean, there is always a chance, especially in classes like this, that you could see a guy like Emmanuel Pregnon sneak in. Pregnon is the opposite of what I kind of talked about with Ione. And not that he's bad in pass pro, he's actually very good in pass pro, but he's a better run blocker than he is pass blocker. Excels in zone blocking, so something to look at if you're looking at the Cardinals, right? Excellent zone blocking guy. He's again another guy that's basically played all of his snaps at left guard, which is probably the biggest concern for each of those guys, right? I mean, not that they can't flip over, but as I think it was it Adam Snyder or one of those guys, famously put, like, if you've done
wiping your rear end
with your
other hand.
Yeah. So,
you can do it. It might be a little messy.
Right. Exactly. So Pregnant, but Pregnant's going to be 25, man. I mean, we're talking a 3-year difference. And that, I think, matters to a team like Arizona. We've talked a lot about the Ciamalo contract, and while it's never bad to upgrade at the interior offensive line, getting a 33-year-old in what looks like an obvious rebuild just doesn't make sense from a time perspective, right? Well, Pregnant kind of in the same way. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's going to be 25 when the season starts. You're talking about a guy that his second contract, especially if you were to take him in the back end of the first round, if you're in a trade up scenario, or even at 34, you're talking about a guy that's going to be 29 on that second contract. So the only way that fits the timeline is if he is a hit, and whatever happens in the LaFleur era is a hit as well, because there's not a whole lot of guys you feel comfortable giving a second contract to, ideally long term, at the age of 30, right? And so that's the biggest thing. Whereas you look at Ione, you're going, okay, he's going to be 25 when we re-sign him, done, type of stuff, right? So,
hey, that's coming up next on the Rise of Zero podcast. The best our Cardinals talk a little bit. Let's move on and talk about guys at guard, maybe center, that the Cardinals could find, or just guys to know on day 2, rounds 2 and 3. That's coming up next on Rise Up See Red. We're back on the Rise Up See Red podcast, best our Cardinals talk on the web, episode 769, that is, as we talk about interior offensive linemen. We're moved to day 2, where there are some names that are interesting for rounds 2 and 3. If you mentioned already round 1, Ioane and then Pregnon. Who are the day 2 guards? We'll talk guards first. And then there's a couple of day 2 centers that I know could be absolute steals for teams, getting them if you can get them on day 2.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of starts with Chase I'm going to say
Santos, probably.
Basantis. The Texas A&M guard. Another guy that when you look at it from the perspective of size and ability and age, he checks the boxes more than like a Pregnon. I'm not saying he's better than Pregnon. I'm just saying for the Cardinals, he makes a little bit more sense. But what was interesting about Basantis and the reason that he kind of catches my eye slightly more, and obviously we'd be talking about if they ended up somehow with a different second round pick, you probably don't want to take Basantis at 34. But if you ended up with him, in the 50 to even your third round pick range, I think he's a good fit. He's played a lot at right tackle. He played an entire season at right tackle, started 12 games or 11 games at right tackle, I think it was, and one game at right guard. His true freshman year, freshman All-American, freshman All SEC team. 12 games at right tackle, one game at right guard. And then he moved to left guard, and that's where he's done most of his work since then. You look at it, over 1,300 snaps, closer to 1,400 snaps at the left guard position. He's, again, another one of those guys that has really shown up that he can win at both in pass protection and in the run game. Athletic. The biggest concern with him is his length. He's got actually insanely short arms, much like Cooper Beebe did last year coming out. And the thing that we've kind of learned, and I tweeted about this today, Jess, I don't think Monty Ossenfort goes for outliers when it comes to length. We can look back at his picks, and all of his guys kind of either check the box or go well beyond the box when it comes to arm length at their position. So while I like Basantis, I just don't know if he's going to, fit what the Cardinals do. The next guy, Keelan Rutledge, a Georgia Tech guard, a guy that does check the boxes, right? 6'4", 316 pounds, 33 and a quarter inch arms. So not quite tackle length, but obviously more than enough to be a guard. And again, ideal fit with that third round pick in terms of value. The consensus board has him at 65. Well, guess who picks at 65?
Perfect. Right? That's perfect.
And then PFF even, and I know they're part of the consensus board when it's all mashed together, but PFF has him at 74. Again, a guy that's been equally solid in the run and pass game, played just a astronomical amount of snaps in his career, allowed 2 sacks. Just under 2,500 snaps at right guard. That, again, if you're saying like, hey, we need a right guard, then that's the one guy that we've talked about that has done it and done it at a high level. The thing with that I like about Rutledge is he's shown that he can work in both zone and gap schemes. And so while the Cardinals are going to probably be a little more zone heavy, God forbid if things go wrong again and LaFleur and company are out in 2 or 3 years, you're not just getting a guy that's only solid in one aspect. From there, you kind of look at it, and you've mentioned there's some centers that we can talk about. The first one would be Connor Liu. By the way, Rutledge will be 23 this year, so he's kind of, again, not too old, not 2 years younger than Pregnon, but about a year older than both Ionia and Basantis. So, a guy that fits the age thing. But on the flip side, Connor Liu is young, like not even 21 yet. played just under 2,000 snaps in his career at center. The thing with Lou, and again, always want to be very cautious with how you take these things into consideration. But the thing with Lou is he's dealt with injuries, right? You've got a guy that only played 435 snaps as a freshman, and then this year, his junior year, he only played 7 games, missed the end of the season with an ACL in October. But when he's on the field, man, he has been like, I genuinely think he probably would have been a top 64 pick in this draft if he was healthy. You look at what he does, you look at what he's done prior to the injury. He commands the line, and the fact that he's so young and he's able to command the line in the SEC really says a lot about him. Came in at 6'3.5", 310, over 32-inch arms, which for a center is more than enough. And then he did the bench press. Obviously, he's only 7-8 months post-op, and did a good job. He's lean right now, but he doesn't look like he's going to have any problems getting up to that 325. Again, you're taking a chance on any lineman type with an ACL, but man, he showed some good athleticism, and then something that you and I always talk about, right? With interior offensive linemen specifically, gotta love guys that were wrestlers, right? He's a former high school wrestling guy, and so he, again, a guy that really I think would fit and be a nice value pick. He's on the consensus board. He's he's at 72. PFF has him at 80. Again, in a move back scenario or where you're getting something else, he's a guy that would fit. And I think here's why I like the idea of Lou. And I know people are going to be like, you need to hit these guys, you need these picks to hit this year. But think about this. You get Lou, you kind of redshirt him, right? Injury redshirt. He's only going to be 21 next year. And
then it's perfect. It's a perfect setup because Frohold's under contract just one more year, and like the Eagles did with Cam Jurgens, you kind of set him up to take over.
Well, and how often do you have a shot to get maybe the best center in the draft on day or in round 3 because of an injury, right? Like, again, this is a guy I think would have been a top 64 pick, probably, in that 45 to 60 range if he was healthy. If the medicals come back good, I love the idea of Lou, in that 3rd round area. I get it. It's a pick that doesn't help this year, but the draft isn't
this year anyway. Come on.
Right. But the draft, that's not all the draft's about, right? So like,
no. You get guys that can play now, you get guys that can develop, and especially round 3 and later. Like let's look at the round 3 picks that we've seen. They drafted Garrett Williams, who played second half of his rookie season. He was injured. You get Tip Ryman, second, third tight end. Isaiah Adams, who didn't play until late in his rookie season. Elijah Jones, who didn't play for like the first 2 seasons until the very end of the year. And so, these are the guys that can play, but you're okay with developing. Round 1, round 2, those are the guys you want playing now or contributing, starting / contributing now. And then the guys after that, you want them to be able to have roles or to develop into roles after that. What about a guy like Sam Hecht, who my guy Kurt Perpjoy at DraftWire has him ranked 2nd, but believes that he would be also a day 2 steal.
I agree, but again, I go back to what we've seen from Monty. I just don't know if the arm length is going to be a problem. 6'4", 303. So he's lean. He's going to have to put on mass. He's the guy that's a technician at the position. He's done it for a while at a high level at Kansas State. You look at it, played over 1,600 snaps in his career at the center position, and he's done a really good job. He just has sub 32-inch arms, and that literally might be it for him. And again, Monty's going to miss out on guys if that is truly something that he kind of looks at. And again, just based on
he's okay with that. Rather than betting on outliers, he'd rather miss on them and have a sure bet, because these are like lottery tickets. And so that's where these physical traits, and people say, well, you miss them. That you miss on them for reasons, because they're too risky at certain price points in the draft, and you'd rather bet, the tried and true physical traits for football, which you have to have the physical traits first, and then the work ethic after that. Very, very, it isn't very often that physical outliers excel. They can survive. Like AQ Shipley had a long NFL career, but he was literally a guy every team was trying to replace every year.
Right. And so, that's the thing with Hecht. And the other one I can mention is Logan Jones, a guy I love out of a program that just produces NFL talent at the offensive line position from Iowa. He's a guy that started over 50 games in his career. Like, he started over 50 games. He won the Remington. He was an AP All-American. Like, literally anything that this dude could do in college, he did.
Big Ten, the Remington only goes to Big Ten centers, I think. Has been the last 10 years of them. It seems to be the Big Ten is producing all the decent centers that come into the NFL.
But again, I hope I'm wrong, because both Hecht and I prefer Jones over Hecht, but I get either side of it. Jones's arms are shorter than Hecht's. He has under 31-inch arms. So I just don't see it. But you're talking about a guy that's excelled in zone snaps that, will be able to really, really help a team that has kind of that interior offensive line set up and is ready to go. I really like him. Like I said, I just don't think it's going to happen. From there, again, we kick back. Oh, actually, do you want to? Because that's who I think will go day 2, and then day 3.
What about Jennings Dunker, our lovely mullet man?
Yeah, Jennings is he's the best, man. I mean, again, another Iowa guy, right? And these Iowa guys, they just produce and they end up playing for a long time in the NFL and having good careers. Started one game at right guard in 2022, started 13 games at right tackle in 2023, second team all Big Ten with 11 games at right tackle, and then started all 13 games at right tackle. And then again, they won the Joe Moore Award. So the best offensive line in college football. And he, he projects as a guard, but he's going to get listed at tackle. He's a fun guy to watch. He works incredibly hard, and he's a guy that you love, and he's got that nasty in him that you would love to see, in Arizona. Again, where do you take him? Right? If you could get him in the top of the 4th round, I just don't think he's a guy you would take at 65. But yeah, I love the guy.
Okay, coming up next on the Res Receiver Podcast, Best of Cardinals Talk on the Web. Let's wrap things up really quick with the guards and centers. Who are the names to know on day 3? That's coming up next on Res Receiver. We're back on the Res Receiver Podcast, Best of Cardinals Talk on the Web. Day 3 guys to know. at guard and at center. I know there's one guy, I believe, the name that came across has had a meeting with the Cardinals, Kobe Baines out of Texas, big guy. But who are other names at both positions that Cardinals fans should know? We don't have to go super deep in depth. We do know the Cardinals like to draft day 3 offensive linemen. Well, granted, they've taken day 3 Texas offensive linemen. Are there any Texas offensive linemen that the Cardinals are going to take on day 3 this year?
I mean, DJ Campbell's a guy that he could be a day 3 pick. Played a lot of right guard in his career at Texas. So, he would check that box, so to speak. He's definitely a day 3 guy that fits what they want to do in terms of everything. 6'3", 313, decent athleticism, 34 and a quarter inch arms. So again, I'm not saying arms are make or break, but I do think it matters. And again, he's played 14 games at right guard in 2023, 16 games at right guard in 2024, and 13 games at right guard in 2025. Whether or not he's a blue chip, you have to be a very good football player to start over 40 games at a position in the SEC. He checks a lot of the boxes. He's a far better zone blocker than he is, gap scheme blocker. So those are the things that I think would fit him. The guy that I'm really interested in, and partially because I don't know where he fits. I don't know how to grade him. I'm not sure, if he's a guy that would be on the Cardinals' radar or not. But a guy that checks all the boxes that we've talked about is Jalen Farmer out of Kentucky. 6'5", so a little bit taller, 312 pounds, so lean, but 34 and a quarter inch arms again. And again, a guy that has started 24 games in the SEC at right guard. So you're talking about a guy that fits into what they need, the position that they need, over 1,600 snaps at the right guard position. He's shown to be kind of like Ione, but obviously in a much lower area, that he's better in pass protection than run blocking. But again, he's slightly above average at both. He just has a lot of good traits that fit what they want. And when you look at it, he's a guy that would be interesting on day 3 because he's not too old, right? He's not even 22. And when you look at his work, he's a guy that has shown flashes for a team that wasn't, all that great. A couple more guys that I just want to mention. There's a bunch. I mean, we could mention Inez Cooper out of Miami. We could mention, Alex Harkey, the other guard out of Oregon, who actually converted from tight end. So he's a really interesting cat. But a couple guys I just wanted to mention because I'm always interested in these big guys and how they fit. The first one is a center out of Duke, Brian Parker. He's 6'5", 309 pounds. I guess he doesn't meet the threshold technically because his arms are 32 and 7/8. But are we really gonna, is 33 like the dead set cutoff for Monty, or has he got a little wiggle room in there? Parker is a guy that can play either position. He's actually played tackle as well, so he maybe probably can't flex out that far, but he's a day 3 guy that would make a lot of sense because we're talking about a guy that started at Duke. So I know when you look at it, maybe it shouldn't matter, but it does. You're talking about a guy that's smart enough to get into Duke, that's played a lot of snaps at Duke. Again, Parker's the guy that you're looking at, probably round 5 and on, maybe even round 6. The final guy out of Auburn is Jeremiah Wright, and he is the big guy. Like, the reason I'm curious about him is because he's 6'5", 331 pounds. So he is, like I said, He is big, and he is a really, really physical and dynamic run blocker. And he can play in either the zone schemes or the gap schemes. And we've seen him, have a little success, but he's on the older side. He'll be 25 this year. So again, does that fit the timeline? But he is, if you're talking about true right guards, guys that have been right guards in Power 4 conferences, started a ton of games in the SEC and had success, Jeremiah Wright is the guy that I'm like, I wonder if round 6 he'd be a guy that they'd be like, yeah, this guy fits what we want.
Yes, and with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this edition of the Rise Up Seared podcast. Pacific Cardinals talking about. We talked guards and centers, and we've still got more positions coming up in different shows. So until then, that's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. Thanks for listening as always. We'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be Red, See Red, and of course, Rise Up, See Red.